Brothers and sisters, there are moments in life when silence is the greatest strength you can wield. Now, I know we live in a world that encourages us to speak up, to voice our opinions, to be loud, bold, and unafraid. But I came here today to remind you that there is wisdom in knowing when to hold your peace. Yes, silence itself can be a powerful weapon, a healing balm, a protector of your spirit. When that anger rises within you, it's a force that can take over your whole being. Your heart starts to beat faster, your palms sweat, and your mind is racing, ready to fire off words like arrows from a bow. In those moments, you feel justified, you feel right, and there's a part of you that craves the satisfaction of saying what's on your mind. But here's what happens: anger clouds your vision. It distorts the truth and causes you to speak out of emotion, not reason. And when you let your anger guide your words, you lose control. You say things you don't mean, and even if you do mean them, you say them in a way that causes harm instead of healing. You see, anger is a fire. It burns hot and fast, and it can consume everything in its path if you let it. But when you choose silence in that moment of fury, you are pouring water on the flames before they get out of hand. You're giving yourself the gift of time to breathe, time to reflect, time to let that heat die down so that you can think clearly again. You're not ignoring the issue, you're just giving it space. So when you do speak, your words come from a place of strength and wisdom, not from the heat of the moment. Anger is temporary, but the words spoken in anger can have a lasting impact. You can destroy relationships, damage trust, or hurt someone deeply, all in a matter of seconds, simply because you couldn't hold your tongue. When anger clouds your judgment, it's like trying to drive through a storm with no visibility. You're going to crash if you don't pull over. Silence in those moments is pulling over. It's taking a pause. It's allowing the storm to pass before you make any sudden moves. The hardest thing to do when you're angry is to stay silent because it feels unnatural. You want to defend yourself, to express your frustration, to let it all out. But remember, words once spoken can't be taken back. What was said in anger can't be unsaid. That silence gives you control over your emotions, over your words, and over the situation. There are moments in life when you will find yourself surrounded by noise, people talking, opinions flying, but there's no substance in what's being said. You've been in those conversations where someone speaks as though they hold the world's knowledge in their hands, but the more they talk, the more you realize they know very little. Their words are hollow, their understanding shallow, and yet they speak with such confidence. It's tempting in those moments to jump in, to correct them, to set the record straight. But when ignorance is at its loudest, your silence speaks more than any argument ever could. You see, responding to ignorance often feels like a responsibility, like it's your job to shed light where there's darkness. But here's the truth: not every situation requires your input. When someone is committed to their ignorance, they're not seeking knowledge, they're seeking validation. They're not interested in learning, they're interested in being heard. And sometimes engaging with that type of energy only fuels it. You find yourself caught in a back and forth that leads nowhere, because no amount of facts, no amount of wisdom is going to change a mind that's already decided it knows everything. There's wisdom in knowing when to stay silent in the presence of ignorance. It's not about conceding the conversation or admitting defeat. It's about understanding that your voice is too valuable to be wasted on those who aren't ready to listen. Ignorance loves to shout, to dominate the room, to puff itself up with pride. But wisdom doesn't need to shout. Wisdom stands firm, knowing that truth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Silence in these moments becomes a mirror reflecting the emptiness of those loud words back to the speaker. It reveals the contrast between noise and knowledge, between speaking for the sake of speaking and speaking with purpose. When you choose silence in the face of ignorance, you let your presence, your composure, and your restraint do the talking for you. You demonstrate that not every fight is worth fighting, and not every word needs a response. Ignorance thrives on conflict it wants to provoke, to stir up, to get a reaction. But when you refuse to engage, when you remain silent, you take away its power. You're not diminishing yourself by staying quiet. You're elevating the conversation by refusing to let it descend into fruitless arguments. There's a kind of power that comes not from the words we say, but from the silence we hold. Too often we are quick to speak, eager to get our point across, ready to share our opinions, our advice, our experiences. But sometimes the most profound gift you can offer is not your words, it's your ability to listen. In a world that glorifies speaking, few realize that the real depth, the real understanding comes in those moments of stillness where you choose to listen instead of speak. You see, when you're silent, truly silent, and focused on the other person, you create space for them to open up, space for them to express what's been locked inside. People are not always looking for answers. Sometimes they are searching for a place to be heard, to feel seen, to know that their words are falling on ears that care, not just on ears that are waiting for their turn to talk. It's in those moments of quiet when you listen with intention that you start to understand what's beneath the surface. You hear the unsaid, you sense the emotions, you pick up on the weight behind their words. And in that space, your silence becomes more valuable than any advice you could ever give. When you listen, you gain insight, you gather wisdom that would have been lost if you were too busy preparing your next sentence. Listening allows you to connect on a deeper level because you are fully present, not just hearing, but understanding. Often people don't need you to fix their problems, they need you to walk with them through their thoughts, to hold space for their feelings, and to simply be there. It's in that stillness, in that quiet exchange, where true communication happens. The beauty of listening is that it reveals things that talking never could. When you're not focused on what you'll say next, you can start to see the bigger picture. You notice the pauses, the shifts in tone, the hesitation. You pick up on what's really being communicated, not just through words, but through emotion, through body language, through energy. And sometimes in your silence, you say more than words ever could. Your presence becomes a comfort, your attention becomes a balm, and your silence becomes a form of support that no words could match. In relationships and friendships and moments of counsel, listening offers a kind of understanding that speaking alone cannot. When you allow someone the space to be heard without interruption, without judgment, you offer them a gift. You offer them the chance to process their own thoughts, to feel valued, and to find their own clarity. There's a time for everything. A time to speak, a time to act, a time to make your presence known, but there's also a time to be still, to wait, and to let the moment pass. One of the hardest lessons we learn is that timing is just as important as the words we say or the actions we take. You might have the right thing to say, the right advice to give, or the perfect solution to a problem, but if the timing isn't right, those words can fall flat or worse, cause harm. When timing isn't right, silence becomes your greatest ally. It's not that you're withholding your wisdom or your truth, it's that you're waiting for the moment when those words will have the most impact. Too often, we rush to speak because we want to fix the situation, we want to be helpful, or we just don't like sitting in the discomfort of waiting. But speaking out of turn, speaking too soon, can cause more confusion than clarity. Just because you have something to say doesn't mean now is the time to say it. Timing is about more than just choosing the right moment. It's about discernment. It's about reading the situation, understanding the emotions in the room, and sensing when the other person is ready to receive what you have to offer. There are times when people are not in the right headspace to hear what you need to say, or when the situation is too volatile for your words to make a difference. In those moments, silence is not avoidance, it's wisdom. It's waiting for the right moment when your words can be heard, understood, and appreciated. When the timing isn't right, even the best of intentions can be misunderstood. You may be trying to help, but if the other person isn't ready to hear your message, it can feel like an attack or like you're not truly listening. Silence gives space for the dust to settle, for emotions to cool down, for perspective to shift. In that space, you allow time to do its work. And when the moment is right, your words will carry more weight because they've been delivered at the proper time. There's power in knowing when to wait. It's not about being passive or afraid to speak up. It's about recognizing that everything has its season. When you rush, when you force the conversation, you risk losing the opportunity for real connection or for your words to have the impact they were meant to have. Silence in those moments is the bridge between what needs to be said and when it needs to be said. It's the pause that allows clarity to form, for emotions to even out, and for the right moment to present itself. Sometimes the silence is the test of patience, a reminder that everything unfolds in its own time. You can have the right words in your heart, the right intention in your mind, but without the right timing, they lose their power. Timing transforms simple words into wisdom, but only if you know when to speak them. There are moments in life when words simply aren't enough. You've been there, standing in front of someone whose heart is shattered, whose world is crumbling, and no matter how much you want to fix it, no matter how much you want to make it better, you realize there are no words that can heal that kind of hurt. Sometimes the pain is too deep, the wound's too raw, and anything you say might feel empty or even make things worse. In these moments, silence is not only the best response, it's the only one.